I need to get this out of my head and onto the page because Stranger Things finally clicked for me in a way that makes the entire series feel intentional from the beginning, not messy or rushed. This is just my perspective, not a claim of secret knowledge. Just me putting together the show, the books, the play, D&D lore, and one very underrated middle school science teacher. Here's the core idea up front. The kids were never using D&D as a metaphor. They were using it as a model. The same way Mr. Clark uses paper, chalk, and fleas to explain physics the kids don't yet have adult language for. Once you look at it that way, everything lines up. I think the story actually starts before Hawkins. In the London Broadway play Stranger Things, The First Shadow, the opening incident isn't about monsters or kids. It's about a military experiment that goes wrong. A ship, light, smoke, space behaving wrong. One survivor. That survivor is Brenner's father. He doesn't come back possessed or insane. He comes back altered, changed by exposure. The play makes it clear this isn't magic. It's contact. A human body intersecting with something it wasn't designed to touch. Brenner grows up knowing something most people never consider. Reality can bend, and people can come back changed. Then there's Henry. Henry's exposure happens in the Nevada desert, not Hawkins. He doesn't become special out of nowhere. He survives contact with something hostile and non-human. Something reaches back through him. Henry isn't the source. Henry is the first interface. That distinction matters because once you see it that way, Vecna stops being the god of the story. He's the general, the translator, the voice that learned how to speak back. Brenner misunderstands the problem from the start. He thinks he's studying biology, blood, genetics, neurology, conditioning. But the real problem is geometry. The powers don't come from drugs or blood alone. They come from position, from where a mind has been pushed in relation to folded space. That's why suspicious minds matters so much. The MK Ultra drugs, the isolation tanks, the deprivation, they don't create power. They open doors. They force contact. Which brings me to Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark is the key to the entire show. Every time he explains something, he's explaining the upside down without using the words upside down. Season 1. The flea and the acrobat. Some beings can move in ways others can't. Punching through dimensions takes enormous energy. That's the gate explanation. Not doors. Ruptures. Season 1 again, folding the paper. Two distant points touch when space bends. You didn't cross the distance. You bent the map. That is the upside down. Destin calling him about sensory deprivation tanks. Isolation changes perception. Hawkins' lab in plain English. Season 3. Choices magnets. Clark talks about massive energy disturbing fields. Not hauntings. Not curses. Physics failing locally. Across 5 seasons, Clark never talks about demons, hell, or evil. He talks about pressure, force, energy, and fields. That's intentional. So here's how I understand the upside down. It isn't a parallel world. It behaves like a transitive demiplane. A folded pocket of reality that only exists because energy is holding it open. It's finite, local, unstable. That explains the wall. That explains why there's nothing beyond it. That explains why it collapses instead of exploding. The mind flayer isn't a monster you stab. It functions like a far realm patron. An elder force that can't fully enter without anchors, hosts, and a bridge space to act through. Vecna isn't the final boss. He's the high-level caster who figured out how to exploit the breach. Killing him doesn't end the problem because the structure he's standing in still exists. 11 is different. Henry survived exposure. 11 integrated it. That's why replication fails. You can't mass-produce a precise planar alignment. That's not destiny. That's physics. Kelly matters too. She isn't evil. She isn't a failed 11. Her powers are perceptual, illusion, mind influence, altering how reality is experienced, not how it's bent. That's why her blood doesn't anger folds. And that's why she sees the system clearly and walks away from it. And Will was never the weapon. He's the anchor. He crossed into a hostile plane, lived, came back intact, and still knows where the seam is. He doesn't bend space. He feels it. That's also why Will, Holly, Derek, and kids like them are different from 001, 008, and 011. The lab kids were forced open and turned into conduits. The others touched the fold indirectly, trauma, proximity, exposure, and became sensors instead of batteries. Even the deaths matter in this framework. Barb, Chrissy, Eddie, Billy, the reporter. Not as villains or sacrifices, but as stabilizing factors. Trauma, fear, grief, those things feed the breach. They give it weight. So how do you wrap all of this up in 2 hours? You don't tie every thread into a bow. High-level D&D campaigns don't end with killing the Elder Force. They end with a choice. You sever excess. You collapse the demiplane. You close the bridge. Vecna falls. The voice behind him goes quiet. The upside down isn't destroyed. It becomes unreachable. That's enough. 2 hours is plenty of time to close a door. And the wild part is the show told us all of this from the beginning. They just disguised it as a D&D campaign run by kids on bikes. Fine, Callie is right about the problem, but not necessarily about the only solution. Longer answer below, because this is where the story actually earns its ending. I think Kelly understands the system more clearly than anyone else. Not because she's stronger, but because her power is perception. She sees patterns. She sees when something is broken beyond reform. And she sees that as long as certain people exist in the same configuration, the door can always be reopened. Kali's core truth is this: you don't end the cycle by winning. You end it by making repetition impossible. She's right about that. Where I think the tension lives is how that impossibility is achieved. 11 and Kali don't matter because they're heroes. They matter because they're keys. 11 is a stable integration of the breach. Kali is a perceptual interface to it. As long as both exist in normal space, the temptation to reopen the fold never fully goes away. Governments try again. Someone always thinks they can do it better next time. That's what Kali sees. And that's why she walks away earlier than everyone else. She's already chosen to remove herself from the board. Do they have to die? Not necessarily. But I do think they have to be removed from alignment. There are a few ways the story could do that without cheap martyrdom. They stay on the other side when the demiplane collapses, they sever their connection and lose their abilities permanently. They become inaccessible in a space that no longer overlaps with all. Are they choosing exile instead of detriment? Jory and D&D perspective, exile is actually cleaner. That feels fine but small. Exile feels
I've been
costly.
inside his mind.
Feels like a cost that matches the scale of
I know
risk.
how he
And
thinks.
this is where Will matters. What is the difference between someone must die and the door can be closed because Will isn't the key? He's a teacher.
I can
He knows
feel
where
it
the seams
again.
Without being required to hold it
It's
open.
not gone.
Collapse the geometry
It never
without
was.
That's why I don't think the ending is 11 sacrificing yourself alone. I think it's 11 becoming choosing to step out of the system entirely. What is the guy actually
You
needs to
die,
relax. So
I
is Kylo right? Yes, about the danger. Yes, about the suffering. Yes, about the fact that the world won't stop trying as long as there exists. But I don't think it shows why it makes sense. What is this? Some people say they're getting the Bible. Some say that I love you. And some say that
They made us
Kylo
monsters,
understands the cost.
and now it's their end.
That's enough to end it without turning the ending into a graveyard. That's the kind of ending Stranger Things has been building toward all along.